Today we're going to look at the mean, median, and mode. So we're going to do a math lesson here. You'll notice I've got a lot of information over here on the right side, and we've got some table data in here. You'll notice this is some fake ACT data I've got in here just to kind of mess around with this. So first, what do these terms mean? Well, the mean is the average of a range of numbers. So our formula there will be equals average and then our range. The median is the middle value, equals median and then the range. And then mode is the number repeated most often. There's two different mode formulas within Excel. There's a mode for single and then there's a mode multiple. We're going to stick with this mode single range here. So why are these terms important? It's because they're measures of central tendency. In other words, single values that attempt to describe a set of data by identifying the central position within that set of data. In other words, we're looking at, for example, what's the average of these scores, what is the middle score, and then of course what's the most frequent number. So we got our formula here. We want to look at all three of them because depending on the conditions, one may be important than the other. And then we'll look at this when and when not to use each. So the mean, which is we'll start with here. So the mean is the average. So we'll say equals average. So our range is our column here for composite. So when we look at this mean, we'll just change this and change all three of these to a number. So you'll notice our mean 19.1. That's our average of our scores right here. So it's a model of the data set. It minimizes error in the prediction of any one value in your data because it's averaging them all. The problem here, though, is it's susceptible to outliers. For example, if we have, and you'll notice in our set of data, let's say that we have a whole bunch of scores in the low 20s, but then all of a sudden we have a score that's, say, at around 3 and another one that's at a 36. Well, those two scores right there obviously could affect our average, even though they're outliers. And so what we see here, the primary problem is that the mean is susceptible to outliers and the values are unusual compared to the rest of the data. Now the median, on the other hand, our middle number, 18.5. So the median is less affected by the outliers, and the median is fine when you have an odd number of scores. The problem is when you have an even number of scores, you have to take the two middle scores and then average them. Being that we end up, when we talk about a lot of data, we're usually talking about 170, 180. I'm not too worried about having a multiple. So when we look at this mean, so the average is a 19.1, whereas the median is about an 18.5. So when we deal with the rounding, we're talking about essentially the same score, 19 and 19. And then our mode is our most frequent score. So we do the formula here, we say equals mode, and you'll notice we're here, so we want to choose single, and then our range again, and we get a 16. So the mode here is the most frequent score. Well, what about when two numbers are evenly represented? That can be an issue here. And that's one of the things we have to look at. We're not too worried about it in this huge amount of data at the moment. But the mode doesn't provide a good measure of central tendency when the most common mark is far away from the rest of the data. When you look at the mode here, the mode is 16, yet the median and the mean are roughly about a 19. So we're talking about a 3-point difference on the ACT. So if we drag these across, now we can kind of get an idea here looking at, and we'll shade these a different color real quick. Because what we want to do, these three are all subscores. So these are these are the test scores. So when you say here a 19.1, 18.5, 16. 19.3, 18.5, and then the 21 here on the reading. So now we can start to kind of look at this and start looking at some questions. The most frequent number is a 21, but the average was only a 19.3. Now we go to the math over here and we say, okay, so it's an 18.6, 16.5, and then a 16. So there's obviously differences in our three numbers here, and so they tell a different story depending on the questions we're asking. Since I'm not the math teacher, I'm not going to go too much into that, but rather showing you how to calculate them is what I want to do. So that's how you do that. So you got average is your mean, Median is your middle number, which is equals median, and then our range, and then our mode, we're going to use mode.sngl, and then the same thing, our range, and that will get us that information. Now, what you'll notice in the blog is I've got a link to a website. That's where I got the information over here in terms of when and when not to use each. So if you want to get more information, you can definitely go to their site and read up on it.